Yeah, we plan to replace the fleet by 2040. We can't scrap all of them now because each bus lasts for 18 years. So we have the depreciation for 18 years. They're all from the UK. All the buses are from the UK, all the double deckers. That's the only country that makes double decker buses. Same as Singapore, all the double deckers are from the UK. Because of COVID, when we replace all these diesel buses to electric, you need a lot more power, a lot more electricity to accommodate this. But so the government has to work with us. But today, we can't really see that if we import all these 4,000 electric buses to Hong Kong, there won't be enough charging station. We have to build a new depot that accommodate electric buses. So in Yuen Long, we're building a 7 stories new depots that can charge 1,000 buses every night. But after we built it, the government has to give us the confidence that they can give us power to charge these buses. So there's no point building a new depot and there's not enough electricity to charge it. So we're delaying it now. But the idea is still the same. We will have to replace it with green energy because it's much better for the environment.
Welcome to Analyse Asia, the premier podcast dedicated to dissecting the pulse of business, technology, and media in Asia. I'm Bernard Leong, and how does a fourth-generation leader of a family business help to facilitate the most important transition to scale bus fleets to electrification and sustainability? With me today, William Louey, non-executive director of Kowloon Motor Bus, or KMB in short, and founding member of JNW Properties to discuss this major plan and also some parts of his philanthropic work. So, William, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Bernard.
Yeah, so in preparing for this interviews, because of all the materials I've done some research of your work, and I'm pretty impressed by some of your philanthropic work. But I want to start with your origin story. I mean, given your background as a fourth-generation leader of a family business, who are the key people within your family that provide you with the tenets of both business and philanthropic leadership?
Well, I mean, the most important person is really my grandmother because my grandfather died very young at the age of 50. And then she basically took care of the family business. And then my father, of course, also died very young. He died when I was 18 years old. So he was only 49.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And then I was very much influenced by my grandmother. I lived with her. And since the age of 18, we live on this house on the peak in Hong Kong. And it's basically the two of us and 8 dogs. And and that's why, I'll later on tell you about, how we launch a pet bus route for the Hong Kong public, which I have recently been interviewed by the Hong Kong newspapers. We have dedicated bus for pets, any pets, including snake. I've seen people carrying snakes to the bus. And I'm going to tell you about that. And then my grandmother was the one who gave me all the philanthropic ideas. She built a lot of old people's homes and she helped the disabled children in Hong Kong. And she used to take me when I was starting from the age of 7. I started going with her to visit these old people and the disabled children. I didn't like it at the time because it's boring for me, right? And then she kind of made me make sandwiches in the kitchen, and then we would bring it all to play with these children. But they were not children, they were grown up. I mean, maybe 30, 40 years old, but mentally they are like 3 years old. So at that time, I was a bit frightened by this. But then later on, I think it has somehow implanted this in my head that what it makes me want to help people. And then I kind of changed her idea a bit. I started to help very bright children. No, it's all because I'm very efficient and I try to do everything with minimal effort and get a big effect, right? So I thought to myself, if I help a handful of bright people, they can change the world instead of helping thousands of. I'm not saying that they don't need help, but for me, I get a lot of satisfaction helping the brightest of the brightest, and because I want to make an impact.
So
Yeah.
that's actually the inspiration for the
From my
philanthropic
grandmother,
work.
yeah.
Yes.
Basically from my
So how about
grandmother.
the business side?
Yeah,
For
even
example,
the
running a
business side,
business.
like you have to have integrity. And KMB actually serves 2.8 million people every day. Ridership, we have 2.8 million people riding on our buses every day. And it's a very difficult business to run. Every little details. There are accidents, there are people who slipped in the bus, elderly people, and it's basically something that I think people don't want to start a business like that. In my great-grandfather started it 2 years ago, like in 1921. But if you start a bus business today, nobody would want to do it. But then I think we don't make a huge amount of money because we have a big fleet of buses and we have 15,000 employees. It's a very, very, very difficult business to run. And then we have to, communicate with the government a lot to fine tune the bus routes. And when there's huge inflation like this year, we have to increase the bus fare. And then everybody will be shouting at us, although we only raised 3%. And it's a big deal, for the Hong Kong public. And so,
I guess it's the difficult part of actually trying to
it's
have
very
your mission of
difficult. I mean,
serving people and then profit being I guess sustainable at the same time.
I look at it as a contribution. We're doing good to the society. I really don't like to make money from trading. You just sit on your desk and look at a computer screen. To me, that is not interesting at all. I've never liked trading. I leave that to of course, I look after my family for wealth, but I ask my professional to do it. I pay very good people to help me run my family office. But I'm personally not interested in stocks and shares and trading and Bitcoins. All these things or anything speculative. I'm not interested in. I'm interested in being creative and to help the community and to make an impact. A lot of satisfaction inside.
I want to get to the philanthropic part, right?
Yeah.
I guess the times that you spent with your grandmother sort of inspired you to set up the William Louey SD Educational Foundation
William
that funds
S.D. Louey
students.
Scholarship. William S.D. Louey is my
Yeah.
grandfather's name.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
I'm LK.
Yeah, okay. So that funds the students to start in universities overseas, as in you're trying to help people so that they can also create an impact in society.
Right.
So can you talk about that part of how did they come about?
I started the scholarship in the early 90s. And the idea came about is I got married in 1990. And very soon afterward, my wife was pregnant, literally 9 months after we got married. We have a son coming. And I talked to my wife one night. I said, look, you look at all our friends, all enjoying the crops from our previous generation has brought us. A lot of my friends just, wake up at noon, they go to the yacht, they smoke a cigar, and then they talk about red wine all day long. But I said, how are we going to bring up our kids? We have to have some kind of support. And then I said, oh, why don't we, because of my grandmother's idea, right? So why don't we set up a scholarship for the brightest of the brightest? And at that time, China was just opened up. And I was a member of the YPO. Do you know YPO?
Yes.
Young Presidents Organization, right? And I met the only YPO from China at that time. Only one YPO from China in the whole wide world. His name was Richard Yan. Wow. And this Richard, and then I discovered Richard Yan, the Yan family is actually very interesting, related to the Song sisters. Wow. The Yan and the Song are very close family friends, and they were literally like the Chinese royalties, not royal, but the very influential Chinese family. And the Yan family started Nankai University. And so I talked to Richard about this, and I said, Richard, I have this idea. Can you help me find some really bright children in Beijing so I can go and meet them? And it was in the 91, I think. And then at the same time, I told my lawyer friend to help me set up the educational foundation properly, legally, with the Hong Kong government. And that was at the same time. Then I went to China, and then Richard found like 100 very bright children, because he went to all the 4 top schools in Beijing, Randai Fuzhong, and all the top universities. They have a connected middle school. So from those middle school, it's very easy. They have talent classes. And these children who are talented, they are 3 to 5 years ahead of normal children. So Richard just went to the headmaster and headmistress and said, "Oh, Mr. Louey in Hong Kong has this idea, and he wants to send some of your kids to study abroad." So then he helped them, and then 100 people apply to this idea. So I went up to Beijing and I met them. My mind was completely opened up, and I was so impressed. That was in the early 90s that these children were talking about nuclear dumping and the Greenwich Observatory in England. I don't even know about, right? I was studying in the UK all my life. And then they
Mm,
talk about the meter ruler in the Science Museum. They know so much. And I was so impressed. So I said, I sat down for 3 days nonstop interviewing 100 children.
mm,
And then in the end, I shortlisted to 25. And
mm,
then I said, okay, I'm not going to take all of you, 25 people, because I simply cannot manage in the first year, right? I have to take care of every one of you by myself. So I said, I will come back in 3 months and I see how your English improve. So it's like a competition. So they started cramming their brains with English, right? And then I went back and then I screened and screened and screened. And in the end, after
mm,
a year and a half, I screened down to 6 people, 6 children in the first year from Beijing.
mm,
And then I have to go through a second hurdle. I
mm,
have to go through the Chinese government,
mm,
and the education department in Shanghai wants to meet me and summon me and ask me why I'm taking the gokbo, the
mm,
treasure of China away. And I said, look, they are no treasure until they see the world. And whether they come back to China and contribute or not, it's not my responsibility. It's your responsibility if you can attract them to come back. But in the
mm.
end, they all went back.
Ah,
90% of my scholars went back. And then they have a wonderful career.
mm.
People like Didi and Shun Feng and all these people, they're all connected to my scholarship.
Wow. So if I
Yeah.
were to ask you, right, then can you also talk about how did that led it to the Pay It Forward Foundation? And do
Yeah.
you think that it has
Yeah.
actually achieved your
It was
original intention?
it wasn't. It was just somehow, just all these things just by fate, it just came to me. That movie called Pay It Forward?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is the movie that came out. And then I bought at that time it was CD or DVDs. No,
DVDs and CDs. I think from
no
90s to
CD,
there
they were
was a
CD, they were
transition.
very
Yeah.
low resolution. So I
Mm,
bought all my scholars this movie to watch. And this movie is about you help 3 people unconditionally, and then they pay forward, and then they help. So there's a multiplying effect. And I thought it was a really good idea. 2 years after I started the scholarship, I sent them to boarding school in the UK. And then this movie came out. And then I gave them the DVD and then they watched. Then that's how the Pay It Forward Foundation came about. It
mm.
was set up by my scholars. So now they have their own scholars. So I have 2 generations of scholars now. I have scholars,
Hmm.
and I met
So
them and we meet regularly.
yeah. So what advice would you give young and aspiring people today about doing good and doing well in the world?
I think being creative is very important. I don't think we should like copy other people and get the idea, but you do get ideas from other people and try to modify it. But I think a lot of people say, oh, young generation these days, the Generation
Mm,
Z and Generation Alpha and all that, they all have all these comments about them. They never stick to anything for long. They don't even get out of the house and they just play video game all day long, that kind of thing, right? But because I'm involved with the scholarship, and every year I interview 150 scholars, and I'm blown away by the improvement from every year. So there are good people, always good people around. I'm not saying that, oh, everybody, all the young children nowadays are all spoiled and they don't want to work and all that. But I do
mm,
see, because I'm involved with education and because I'm very close to Oxford, especially St. Hugh's College. My
mm.
son went to Pembroke and
Oh,
my stepfather went to Balliol.
oh,
And so a lot of my people around me, all came back from the UK, from top universities, and So I'm involved. I see bright people all the time. And I don't believe that, I mean, we must not focus on the negative, you know. I think all it takes is if I've always asked my friend to do something. And in fact, all my friends are doing different things. One of my friend helps the suicide prevention services in Hong Kong, and I'm involved with that as well. I think it's a very meaningful thing to do because education has become so competitive now that it gets the children very depressed. And sometimes the parents are pushing them too hard. 2,000 people commit suicide in Hong Kong every year,
Yeah.
and half of them are children. And one of my friends is helping, you know, is doing that. And then there are other friends who are doing spinal cord injury.
That's right.
And yeah, so I
Mm.
mean, so we're all doing different things to help. Hong Kong is a wonderful, I mean, all my friends are very, we exchange ideas and we support each other. So I would donate money to the spinal cord injury, and then the spinal cord injury would donate money to my scholarship. So we kind of help each other out, and it makes us all feel good.
Well, I guess that's a compounding effect of helping each other and
Yeah, yeah.
lifting society
And
as
I've
a
always
whole
been,
by
yeah.
itself.
And like I've always, every time when people interview me about philanthropy, and I said, philanthropy is not about giving and then get something in return, like social climbing or
Mm.
getting an honorary fellowship. It's not like that. I mean, you do it because you are happy. It makes you happy inside. And I always tell my friends because I'm healthy and because I'm happy inside, so I'm healthy. I get sick less than a lot of people. I don't get flus. I don't get, I do get it, but not as often as other people. And then
Mm.
I just, yeah. And I'm like helping my friend to stay young and healthy. I'm over 65 now. And a lot of my friends commented, like, wow, you're so young for your age. And I was like, because I'm happy from within. So this will give positive energy to my friends and people around me. And I think doing philanthropy gives you this effect more
Mm.
than a recognition.
So I'm going to now switch topic to move from philanthropy to the main subject of the day, which I want to talk about Kowloon Motor Bus, or
Okay.
KMB in short, in Hong
Yeah.
Kong.
Mm.
So I want to have this conversation because pretty curious about a very, very large electric bus fleet concept that you are now trying to bring it to fruition. So
Yeah.
maybe just to help my audience, for those who are not familiar with KMB in Hong Kong, can you just talk about overview of the company? You talk already about the history that your
Yeah. My
uh,
great grandfather
grandfather
started it
started
in,
it and its significance in the Hong Kong transportation landscape.
yeah.
Probably I have also taken a bus on KMB. So my
Yeah. Yeah.
wife works in Hong Kong for 5 years and she probably
Oh,
have one way these we have touched the bus one way or another.
yeah. 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 No, so a few years before COVID, actually, we announced that we were going to replace the whole fleet with electric buses.
Mm.
But because of COVID, the government is now running at a deficit, and because they're spending, they have to help Cathay Pacific, and they even help KMB because during COVID nobody came out, and I refuse to lay off any of my staff, especially the frontline staff, because they are really what contributes to my company. So my job, my most important job in the company is that I actually run all these recreation clubs like singing, marathon, dragon boat, basketball, ping pong. There are 60 football, especially 60 recreational clubs, and we have over, I think, 6,000 members in these recreational clubs, and the union has only like 2,000. So there are 6,000 happy people versus the difficult 2,000. So I always, that's how I make my staff happy, and that is my job, And then now we are planning this Chunming, the spring dinner, spring lunch,
Yep.
and and we're going to, obviously every year we invite all 15,000 of them, and it takes like 30 of this lunch and dinners to complete the whole
Yeah.
event. Now I have to attend all of them. I have to, I can't eat, right? Because I have to go to all the tables and say hello to them and listen to their views, how we can improve and how they can be happier. What KMB is about people, about the social network. And KMB, obviously, it's a lot of like my father used to say, oh, KMB won't, before he died, he said, oh, KMB is going to be a passe business. And it turns out that Hong Kong population grows from 3 million the year my father died to now 7.5 million now. And the Chinese government has planned to bring in 2.5 more. So we're going to have 10 million people in Hong Kong. So we have the railways, the MTR, the underground, but they don't go door to door. They are like it's like your body's arteries and veins, right? So we have these major arteries, which are the trains, and then the buses are the ones that is the veins, and then the taxis and the minibus, they are the smaller veins. And so this will always, and then we're opening up new towns everywhere to accommodate the new population. And so Kowloon Motor Bus will always be around, I think. And in fact, lately the Abu Dhabi government has chosen us to advise them on the transportation system in Abu Dhabi.
So I want to ask you, given that it's now leading the charge to build the sort of the largest electric bus fleets in Asia, can you share your vision about what the future of green transit will look like in Hong Kong?
Yeah, we plan to replace the fleet by 2040. We can't scrap all of them now because each bus lasts for 18 years. So we have the depreciation for 18 years. They're all from the UK. All the buses are from the UK, all the double-deckers. That's the only country that makes double-decker buses. Same as Singapore, all the double-deckers are from the UK. Because of COVID, when we replace all these diesel buses to electric, you need a lot more power, a lot more electricity to accommodate this. But so the government has to work with us. But today, we can't really see that if we import all these 4,000 electric buses to Hong Kong, there won't be enough charging stations. We have to build a new depot that accommodate electric buses. So in Yuen Long, we're building a 7 stories new depots that can charge 1,000 buses every night. But after we built it, the government has to give us the confidence that they can give us power to charge these buses. So there's no point building a new depot and there's not enough electricity to charge it. So we're delaying it now. But the idea is still the same. We will have to replace it with green energy because it's much better for the environment.
So wouldn't you think about, say, a hybrid model and then slowly
We
transition
would also
towards
think, you see, the
a
technology
fully electric
all the time
buses?
because now in China, they have a vehicle, they have a hybrid vehicle that can run for 2,000 kilometers. So literally, you can drive from London to Italy non-stop without refueling, right? So for Hong Kong, I think in a whole year, I think you only have to refill the tank 5 times, right? And you can run for the whole year. So new technology comes along. So what we said 5 years ago, we have to change our mind. Oh, there might be very good hybrid buses that we don't need to build very expensive new depots and charging stations and all that. So the technology changes all the time, but the idea hasn't changed. We will go green and that will impact the environment. And look at all the weather change and all that is really frightening.
So you talk about the infrastructure requirements in order to get this full transition to happen. So and also some of the mental models and what the challenges would look like. I'm pretty curious, what's the one thing you know about transforming Asia's bus fleets to electric bus fleets that very few people do?
We are all going electric. That is the trend, right? Of course, we'll have to work with the government. We need support from the government. We can't just say, oh, we have a good idea, but sometimes good idea needs to be, you need to have the right timing and the right people, right? So, but the challenge is getting enough power to charge our buses at this moment, until we get the green light, then we will freely, every year we have 400, roughly about 400 buses that are obsolete. We scrap 400. Every year we buy 300 to 400 new buses every year. So we'll replace these obsolete ones with electric, right? But now we have to slow down because we're worried that there's not enough charging stations for these buses.
Which is a reasonable point, because even when I was in the logistics space and we were trying to think about trying to have a 9-ton truck to be to charge it, actually was almost taking off the entire power grid of the area.
Exactly.
So the power question is I think a lot of people is very naive about thinking just change it to electric, but forgot about all the infrastructure requirements that are actually required to make it work.
But then Hong Kong is an ideal place for electric buses and electric vehicles because Hong Kong is a small place. So we don't really need to, like in China, or even Singapore is a small place, ideal for electric buses. Each one charge can last a whole day because each bus only travels like 400 kilometers a day because we have bus routes and then they go around in a circle. And then the bus driver, after one circle, he will rest for 15 minutes. We must make him rest for 15 minutes. That is to minimize. I mean, that makes
fatigue. Yeah, totally understand.
More comfortable and for safety of our passenger. We must make them rest for 15 minutes. They have to go to the bathroom. They have to have lunch for 1 hour and all that. So they just go one circle, not literally circle, it could be like that. And they rest for 15 minutes. Sometimes, depending on the traffic, if the traffic is bad, they don't have 15 minutes. But if the traffic is good, then they will have more than 15 minutes. I'm saying on average 15 minutes rest between each. And then they probably drive 10 circles a day. That's all it is. And so one charge will last the whole day. And it's the ideal place. Hong Kong is the ideal place because we don't have nothing far, like in the UK or even London is huge, right? But Hong Kong is ideal for electric buses.
And also currently, because of the inflation challenges, and I think the road to transition between eco-friendly and even the current fuel for transportation will probably be a difficult one, but it's a kind of, you have to do it in a slow burn process. How does KMB, I guess, think about balancing the transition to these eco-friendly vehicles with maintaining also affordable and reliable services for your millions of daily passengers, right? Because your population is increasing by, when you took over, it was 3.5, and then after that is twice as much. It's going to go to 10 mil, is 3x from where you began.
Yeah. So our average bus fare is about $7. 7 Hong Kong dollars. That is like 70 pence in English pounds.
That's right.
That's our average, right? I mean, very low city. You know, Hong Kong is a very expensive city, and we're actually helping, you know, the majority of the people to go to work, to go to school, and to go to the market to buy food, and you know, 70 you know, $7 is our average bus fare. So
I have another question I thought would be interesting to you. What are the emerging technologies other than electrification of buses that you're going to be most excited about in the coming decade? I could think of one, like, for example, self-driving autonomous vehicles, but that will also change the way how you operate as well.
Of course, well, there is autonomous, and there are also like drones.
Yeah,
you know, in China, they now have drones that delivers, you know, Taobao and all that, you know, and even people now, they have. I was talking about it to a very good friend last night. They actually tried the drone. You know, instead of a 1 hour journey, they can do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So we will obviously look into that. But then Hong Kong is so densely populated, and we don't have bus lanes for like busy roads like Nathan Road, you know, like the Chips. We don't have dedicated bus lanes. So it's very hard for autonomous to buses. There's too many variables, too many. For now, the technology is not there, but it will come. But we have to look after our frontline staff. So we don't, you know, we always tell them, they know that they will be replaced one day, but we'll replace our buses the same way. When it's obsolete, when they retire, when a batch retire, then we'll replace it with autonomous. If it is safe enough, then we will consider it, right? But we will not lay off people to just for the sake of being autonomous.
I think this is probably the difference between the Asia and the Western world, where I think that there is a very humane part of us that even technology transitions happened. Or I mean, we think of it like a traditional job. I used to head up the post offices in Singapore. I was running the entire business for Singapore Post, and then we have service ambassadors. But what we were having issues was recruiting new ones, and as the older ones, we actually record from retirement. And we always make sure that we will always have to be empathetic to inform them that as long as you all work with us, the technology, no one will get laid off on
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think this is the kind of social values that we talk about in Asia, where it's not just about the dollars and cents, it's also about the transition of the process of how to work with people.
Yeah. You know, the other night we had our annual dinner, and then we have the annual presentation award ceremony. I tell you, how many people work for, how many prizes we gave out that night? Over 1,000. I want to give you the numbers. It's just to show you how loyal they are. You know, hold on a second. You can. Yeah, okay. So for long service, 627 people, 35 years, 50 people, 30 years, 81 people, 20 years, 92 people, 10 years, 404 people.
Wow.
And then we have star bus captain. That means they're very good at driving. So 185 people.
Wow.
And then we have the Outstanding Star Award, 73 people. And then we have the Safe and Eco Driving Outstanding Award. That means they don't accelerate and brakes and, you know, that's the fuel saving drivers, 100 people. So, you know, we have, I mean, every year we give out all these prizes, 35 years, 50 people, like, you know, working for my company for 35 years. You know, as a bus driver, it's no easy job.
I totally agree on that. I'm quite curious to know. I think this question comes to my mind, like what kind of partnerships or collaborations that would be very important to advancing KMB's current sustainability goals, and also how does this roadmap actually align with Hong Kong's broader goals for reducing carbon emissions?
We work with power supply stations, and we cooperate with the Shenzhen bus company. And we used to advise them, but now they advise us because they have 9,000 electric buses already in operation in Shenzhen. Hong Kong is behind. We used to teach them. Now they're teaching us back. We're buying buses from China. BYD will be providing most of the buses, but of course we won't rely on just BYD. We'll buy buses from ADL, you know, Alexander Dennis. I think they sell to Singapore as well. And Wright Bus in Belfast. They all make double deckers. Thomas Heatherwick, the designer, is the one who designed with Wright Bus to make these London buses. To go back to the original, we cooperate with these companies. And then even 10 years ago, we already started talking about hydrogen fuel cell.
Wow.
So I went to Guildford, ADL's the development office in hydrogen. I went to visit them and I was very impressed. But then I said, how do you get hydrogen to work? I don't believe in dirty hydrogen. I don't want to make hydrogen from coal burning or fossil fuel. That is no way of making hydrogen. I want clean hydrogen, like from
water directly.
Water, you know. But you know how to make hydrogen from water? You need electricity. So why don't you use electricity right away if you want to make hydrogen from electricity? I think it's silly. Use electricity to make hydrogen, and we could use electricity right away. Why do we have to have an extra?
It's interesting you say this because the Japanese car makers are also betting very heavy on hydrogen fuels. I mean, as a separate paradigm to the electrification, which from what you're saying from first principles is actually easier to just electrify rather than trying to create hydrogen.
Exactly.
So
I don't see
the
point of hydrogen for now until they have a better solution to make green hydrogen. I don't want to use dirty hydrogen. There's no good. It's no good for the environment. And it's stupid because if you use electricity to make hydrogen, why don't you use electricity right away?
Right. Okay. So I have a couple of short questions, and I just want to have your quick thoughts on that.
Okay.
So what is the one technological shift or paradigm within your industry in the past 12 months that you have changed your mind about something?
Oh, exactly. Changing my mind about
Yeah.
the hybrid, because 2 years ago, we're never talking about hybrid that can run for 2,000 kilometers. So I might change my mind.
Ah.
But I won't change my mind about going backwards. I'm going
Mm,
forward. Like, we have to be environmental. That is the one key thing that we cannot change, right? We
mm.
have to be more environmental. But of course, you change your mind, like COVID changed everything. I mean, I'm forced to
No.
change my mind. I'm
Yeah.
forced to change my mind. People, how the Hong Kong public don't go out late at night anymore. They were used to going home early. So now we have to provide, we have to promote nightlife in Hong Kong now.
Okay. Then, and my other question, what is the one?
I'm forced to change my mind. It's not that I changed my mind voluntarily.
Right. Yeah, true,
Forced to
true,
change
true. People usually
that.
in Hong Kong stay out very late because the apartments are relatively small, so that's why they spend most of their
Exactly.
time
But
outside.
now, because of COVID, they've changed their habit.
Mm. So, what is the one question that you wish more people would ask you about KMB, the current electrification and sustainability efforts?
Oh, they keep asking me, when are we going to have the whole fleet, like replaced?
Oh,
The reason why we
so
want
that's
to,
the question you wish people ask you more.
yeah, I wish people would ask more, because then I can tell them that it's not up to me. I intend to change everything. First of all, it's good for the company, because at the moment we're using diesel, and the price of diesel fluctuates, and it
Mm,
really affects my annual profit. Every year. Like now, we're lucky the oil price is low, right?
mm,
But when the oil price goes up to $100 per barrel, we'll literally make no money. It's all depending on the oil price, because the company is very efficient the way we run it. We have exactly the right people to run. There's no excess, there's no extra cost. The company is running at a very efficient way. The only thing that we cannot control is the oil price. That's why we want to change it to electric. But when you change to electric, the government has to support. They have to have extra power for us to charge our electric buses every night,
mm.
right? And so this is the question that I would like people to ask me, so I can make them understand why there are only 80 so far, 80
Mm.
electric buses, as
Yeah.
prom.
No, by the way, with that amount of bus fleet you have, actually 80 is a pretty good number because it takes time as well
Yeah, yeah,
for the depreciation. I think these people do not appreciate the traditional industries. The time scale is not like when you have a mobile app or iPhone, you just press a button and everything changes. It doesn't
yeah,
work that way. Atoms are much more difficult to navigate than bits from that
exactly.
way. So
Exactly.
my traditional closing question then, what does great look like for KMB in the next decade?
I'm optimistic, obviously. I'm the fourth generation. My son will be the fifth generation. As I said, not just Hong Kong is expanding to 1 to 10 million people. We have the Greater Bay Area,
Mm.
and there will be 100 million people in the Greater Bay Area. So I don't really see there will always be new towns, I mean, there will always be a town that the train takes a long time to get there, right? You have to build the railways, and then they don't go door to door, right? So, and then also the aging population in Hong Kong, same as everywhere. I don't know about Singapore. Uh,
Similar situation, I think.
yeah, we don't have
Mm.
enough I mean, old people. There are more and more old people. They don't need to go to work in a hurry. Like they don't need to hop into the underground. You get on a bus and it goes and brings you there.
Yeah.
There's hardly any walking. But if you go in the underground, you have to go up and down the stairs. It's very hard for the elderly people.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that's definitely the correct point because I seen this is also with my mom is in her late 80s and
yeah,
it's actually difficult to go to MRT or the equivalent
yeah.
in Singapore because it's long walk and her kneecap and she would rather prefer to take a bus which is actually the bus stop is just right next door
Exactly.
and then she can get to the point of where she wants to go from point A to point B in a more comfortable way.
And then we have new ideas like having a pet bus. It's not, we don't
Yeah.
want to mix pets with normal passengers because some passengers may be worried about a snake or a lizard or whatever, right? But if you have a dedicated pet bus route, you go to Hong Kong O1 website and you can see my interview there. And we have dedicated bus routes for pets because in Hong Kong, pet owners have to call an Uber or a taxi, but sometimes they reject them because
Yeah.
they don't want pets. They're worried that they might make the bus or the seats dirty or something. But I went on these buses, and usually pet owners are very considerate. They will always make the dog, do their business before they get on the bus, and then they always carry them, and they're very clean, and they carry all the tissues and the backpack in their backpack and the snacks and everything. So, so I have no worry about, and we're providing this service. And also, we have one bus lane, only women bus drivers are running it.
Wow.
So we want to promote more like woman power, for our society. And in fact, 80% of my department heads are ladies.
Oh.
Not that I'm deliberately choosing ladies to be our department heads, but because their work, they perform well, so they get the job,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, William, many thanks for coming on the show. Really learned a lot about your philanthropic work and
Thank you
also
very
the
much.
challenges of even thinking about electrification of bus fleets of that kind of scale that you are operating in. So,
Yeah.
in closing, I have two quick questions. My first question is, any recommendations that have inspired you recently?
In terms of what?
Books, any movies, or even something that you read or something that you hear that inspired you.
That every day something, I always get inspired every day, like by little small things, like totally unrelated things. Like when I look at a show window, and then it will inspire me to do something for my bus company. It's like I can't think of a TV show that has inspired me. Oh, like not today, but obviously the Paid Forward movie inspired me to make my
There you go.
Pay It Forward, you see? So that is an inspiration from something totally unrelated. And it turns into, it's actually, I've seen the result now because there are actually, many scholars, like second generation scholars from this scholarship, which are paid for by them, and it's a wonderful network. I
So how
was in,
do
I
no,
was in
please
Chengdu, like last month, and I was looked after by my scholars.
how do my audience find you then?
How do
My audience find you? Your website, I know. I actually went to your personal website, William Louey website, right? .com, right?
YouTube, they can find me on YouTube, and they can go to kmb.com and they can find me.
Okay, you can definitely find this show on everywhere from YouTube to Spotify, and of course, tweet to us on everything. We'll be happy to hear more feedback for the show. And once again, William, many thanks for coming on the show, and hopefully catch up with you when I'm in Hong Kong.
I like your show because you're very natural, and looking at your background is natural. It's not like you have to have a fantastic and fancy background and lighting. This is just most important thing. We Hong Kong Chinese people, Singaporean people, we go for content. We go to a restaurant, we eat good food. We don't eat decorations. Right? So this is what I like about your show.
Thank you so much, and I will definitely talk again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.